Hi everyone, Kendall here. Welcome back. This is the final installment in our Autumn Wonders Sew Along, which has been hosted by Pat Sloan at her website, ilovetomakequilts.com. And this week, funnily enough, the topic is cozy quilts. So at the end of this sew along, you'll have a flimsy that'll eventually be a cozy quilt for someone. Following this week, you'll just need to refer back to the original supply and layout lists, which I can link to in the description below, to do your little half square triangle sashings and the borders. There are two options. There is one just with one small border, and there's a second option with a bigger border. I'm going to go with the bigger border for mine, and I'll show you at the end of this video how mine finished up. If you haven't done so already, jump over to Pat's website, download this week's free pattern, and you betcha, I'll show you how I do it. I think we've already dejaed this view. Anyway, here we are again with all of our pieces and parts cut out as per our pattern. You'll notice that some of them are in the form of a triangle, and that's because we need to cut the squares and do one cut on the diagonal for our medium fabric and two of our background squares. You'll also notice that I only have a light and medium fabric on the board in front of me, and that's because I decided to not use a dark fabric for this, and I'm just using that same red or the medium for that. To make this block, we first have to start by making 3 sets of 2 at a time half square triangles. And to do that, we'll take 3 of our background squares and draw a line from corner to corner and match those up right sides together with our light and dark fabrics, in my case medium, and take those to the machine and stitch 1/4 inch on each side of our drawn line. Now that we've stitched on each side of our drawn line, we just need to, well, I like to give these a quick press first to set those stitches before cutting them in half along our drawn line and then taking them back to the pressing mat and pressing towards the dark side. We now need to trim our half square triangles down, and you can do this in whatever your preferred method is. For me, I like to do them 2 at a time, and I like to use a square quilting ruler. In this case, I have my 6.5 inch square. To trim these down using my 6.5 inch square ruler, we place the diagonal from the ruler on the stitching line, and then we make sure that we have enough fabric on all 4 sides outside our required trim down measurement. We then can trim our first 2 sides. We now need to just rotate this block around very carefully to make sure that we remain nested and square, and we can now line up our required trim down measurement on those freshly cut edges and trim the final 2 sides. Do this for all 6 of your half square triangles. We'll now move on to making the first of 2 units that go towards making this complete block, and that is just little bow tie units using the dark half square triangles that we made in the previous step. As I said before, I'm doing mine in the same red fabric or medium, but for you or whatever you're doing, this is the dark from the pattern, and we just need to make 2 4-patch units, which is quite simple construction. We'll start by first of all sewing all of our vertical seams and then our horizontal seams. I'll touch on pressing when we get there. With all of our vertical seams now done, we'll just clip these apart and we'll press them towards that solid background square, and then that will allow us to nest this in the middle before doing our horizontal seams. With our horizontal seams now sewn, we're just going to press this in one direction, it doesn't matter which, and we'll move on to creating half of the rest of the next unit. Now it is made up of all of our little half square triangles and our background fabric that has been cut on the diagonal. We need to take special care when laying this out so that we get it as per the pattern, and we're just doing the top left hand side of this. So we'll start by laying out our half square triangle, and then we'll grab our background squares that were already cut on one diagonal, and we just need to place those so that the right angles are facing each other. The next one goes on the bottom here in the same fashion with the right angles facing each other, so that your long bias edge, and it will be a bias edge, goes across like this. We'll start by sewing these first two bits here together. We'll press them out towards that triangle, and then we'll attach the other triangle and once again press out towards that triangle. To make it easier when moving to the next triangle, just trim that little dog ear off straight with the rest of the block. With our other small triangle now sewn on, we'll once again press out towards that triangle, so towards this more solid piece of fabric. We then need to add the other half of this half square triangle unit, so we'll take our medium square that we cut in half on the diagonal at the start and put this together with the units we've just constructed. I find it easiest to find the center first and line that up, sew this on with a 1/4 inch seam, taking care because it is a bias edge. With that sewn on, we now just need to press this towards that large triangle as opposed to the peace triangle, the path of least resistance, but in this case as well, it is to the dark side. We now just need to trim this down and make sure that we have our 6.5 inches. You won't be trimming much off here, and as you can see, I had previously trimmed down my little peace triangle, but you didn't see that on camera, as the magic of editing. So I just trimmed the littlest bit off that peace triangle, making sure I had the 1/4 inch, and also took the dog ear off at the same time. So with this trimmed down, placing your diagonal from your square ruler on that seam line, you are just trimming the smallest bit off that large triangle to make sure that we have the 6.5 inches that is required. We'll now move forward and put this block together, and it is pieced in a simple 4-patch. I've put the little insert from the pattern there up in the top left hand corner. So we'll lay this out as a 4-patch, and then we will do both of our vertical seams and then our horizontal seams. Following sewing our vertical seam, we just need to press this in one direction, but make sure you do it in the same direction on both. And in my instance, I've chosen to press out towards our pieced triangle square. After I do the horizontal seam, once again, I just pick a direction and press. And with that final press, our block for this week is done. And here is my completed quilt, already quilted and bound with a 1/2 inch binding. Well, that's it for another week, folks. And as always, I really love if you could like, share, subscribe. And if you subscribe, well, if you don't, I don't know why. But when you do subscribe, not if, make sure you click that little bell and you'll be notified of all my upcoming videos. As always, thanks for watching. I'll see you all again next week. Bye for now.